Love Means Never Having to Say Geronimo is an absolute roller coaster of an episode. This is the 18th episode of the second season of Wings, and as always, there will be spoilers from now as I talk about what happens in this episode, and it really is unpredictable. Starts off quite entertainingly with somebody approaching Faye's desk with his wife, and Faye kind of accidentally reveals that he's been making frequent trips to Boston with another woman. Not connected to the main narrative, but definitely an interesting way to start things off. The rest of the episode focuses on Helen, Brian, and Joe. And Helen and Joe are alone together. They've sent Brian out. They think Brian got the hint when Joe said he should go out for ice cream, but Brian went to get ice cream and brought ice cream back. They're not alone. They have to tell Brian that actually they want to be on their own. And I think that that's absolutely fair. And then the next thing they know, Brian hasn't come back. He's gone out and he doesn't come back that night, and they're really worried about him. And then Lowell tells a rather dark story about somebody in his family who went down a well, which was very well told, but a little bit dark. And then Brian comes in, and it's a relief. He's fine. Where has he been? Well, he's been all over and to Paris, and he met a woman called Gwen, and Gwen is played by Lisa Darr, and they've decided to get married. They met each other the previous night, and they're getting married, and the film is all about that. They decide that they're going to get married up in the plane, and then once they're married, they're going to jump out of the plane and parachute, and it's going to be romantic, and it sounds really lovely, but obviously it's a little bit too much too soon, and Helen and Joe try and tell Brian this. But Gwen manages to turn things around so that Joe and Helen end up saying they'll get married as well, which is, I think, not what anybody expected. And my favourite part of the episode is when they're up in the plane, which is a little later on. And this is a bit that I think was just completely unpredictable. So as I said, there are huge spoilers for what happens. And Roy is actually officiating the wedding because he is licensed to do that. And Brian and Gwen decide to not get married. And this is because of a feeling Gwen had in her gut. But they also realise that not getting married when they're meant to be getting married would be an incredibly spontaneous thing to do. And they like to be spontaneous. So they decide to not get married. They jump out of the plane. They're very, very happy and they're having a great time. Unpredictably, caught up in the romance of the moment, Helen and Joe decided they were going to get married there and then as well, and they almost did. In fact, they both said I do, so I'm not entirely sure legally how close they were to becoming married, but certainly it was very close, and thankfully they decided last minute not to get married because it would have been rushed. They don't want to get married right there and then, and I think that that's definitely the sensible approach. There's no point in forcing yourself into that situation if you're not ready. But as Gwen pointed out, Joe and Helen have been friends. They've had some kind of relationship for 20 years. So how much longer are they going to wait? Because they know they're very good in each other's company. And I honestly think at this stage, I have seen the show before, but judging at this stage, I think the relationship of Joe and Helen could go anyway. I think at this point in the show, it's very unpredictable. And I really like that. I think it works really well. I remember kind of feeling when they first started dating, I thought it would be like a one-time thing, maybe 2 episodes. I never really expected it to last even as long as it has. So at this point, it's definitely unclear where things are going, but in a way that's really exciting. This episode was absolutely not predictable. As I said, I've seen it before, but I vaguely remember not knowing where anything is going. There were bits of this that I didn't remember, things that I couldn't recall, that I didn't predict those. So definitely a wild roller coaster ride, and it's an absolute joy. I really enjoyed it. Really nice messages about being spontaneous and taking a leap, but also the importance of not doing something because you feel pressured into, which is exactly the case with Helen and Joe. But when they questioned each other, they both realised that this is what neither of them wanted, and they were able to do the right thing. So, needless to say, I thought Love Means Never Having to Say Geronimo is a pretty decent episode.